See you again. I have missed you. I've been out and about, kind of all over the place, and haven't been able to be here live. And that is a big bummer because I really miss you when I'm not here. I would love to say hello and welcome to everyone that is joining us live. And if you're catching us on replay, you may have forgotten about this. We have a policy party coming up in just 2 weeks. And so we are working our way through like the myths and the things that we mess up when we're trying to change policies at work or in the community, and that we sometimes forget. And so we're going to talk today about number 3, the third thing that we do that doesn't go very well when we try to do it all by ourselves. Let me just tell you, I've got a lot of great information for you today. But if you're here, you care about policy. You care about making people healthier, being healthier, and you want to do that at work and in the community because we need work-life balance. It is not all about work. It is not all about life. It's about the two. And so to do that, I'm so glad you're here. And I want to say a shout out to Lisa, who always catches us on the replay if she can't be here live. So if you're here and you're catching us on replay, put replay in the chat. Love to know that you're joining us. But today we're going to talk about going all alone. And before I do that, I want to introduce myself. My name is Renee Schulte. I am a mental health counselor by trade, and I have been a politician. I have been a lobbyist. I have been a consultant, and I've worked on all sides of policy. And so from that perspective, we're coming at looking at how do we make policy better? Because when we don't bring in all perspectives, you typically get some bad policy that have unintended consequences for people. And we don't want that. So how do we make change? And you, not being a lobbyist, not being a politician, just being you, can make change. And we're doing that right now in my community. And I'll share more about that in just a minute. But I'm so glad you're here. So we're in the middle of a conversation about the 4 biggest mistakes that we make by doing things that maybe we think is good, but we're just not really paying much attention. So we've already gone over 2, and we've talked about the fact that you want to change everything all at once, and so nothing gets changed. You just overwhelm people. Ever felt like that? Or last week was talking about research, and sometimes people want to make something illegal that's already illegal. Can't really fix that. I actually have an example today. We were talking about the fact that people don't turn in the data they need to turn in for various types of services and how we can't track it. Guess what the code already says? That they're supposed to turn in data. So you can't just put back into policy something that's already in policy. So it takes you being more creative. What kind of solutions can you do in order to fix something that is not being implemented correctly? That's a different problem than making more laws or more policies. And so we're talking about that. You might need to do some research. That was what we talked about last week, to figure out what exactly is the problem. Is there already a law? And maybe people aren't even doing it correct. That happens all the time. So that's what we're talking about. But today, we're talking about my actual favorite, and this one is about going as the Lone Ranger. You know those people? You know those people that come up with this idea that they think is better than sliced bread, and they're the only person that's ever had this idea, and by gosh, they're going to change it. And so they just rush out into the world with their great idea. It often lands and ends in this massive crash and burn because it's not often well received. It steps on all the people that have gone on before you, and it insults all the people who've already been working on the issue. And you leave with your tail between your legs, really upset because you didn't fix anything and just sort of maybe even embarrassed yourself in the process. Well, gosh, we don't want to do that. There is a better way. So how do we do that? How do we figure out who cares about our topic? If we have something we're passionate about, how do we find those other people to join us on the journey? So today in the chat, if you want to know more about this topic, if you're here with us live or on replay, put Lone Ranger in the chat and I'll know you were here or that you came on by to see the replay. So again, Lone Ranger, that's what we're talking about today. And so I know you've probably been there. You've probably tried to do something, and sometimes it is just easier to do it ourselves because if we get all messed up, it just makes a big mess, right? So we're like, oh, this will just be easier. But when it comes to doing something like changing the policies at work or in the community, you're going to need a lot of support. And I don't know where you live, but in my state, in Iowa, it takes 51 votes in the House. It takes 26 votes in a Senate and a governor. That's a lot of people that you have to have on the same page if you're going to move something forward. And that's just the state house, just one. Other places could be a city council where you have to have 7 members and you have to have 4 of 7 to pass something. Sometimes you have to have 2/3 votes for things to pass, like bond initiatives. And we could talk about that. We have one going on in my community right now. They want to put this big new rec center down the way. took out the swimming pool because it costs too much. It still costs a lot of money, costs double what most other communities are doing in our area, and they want to pass this bond vote. They have to have 60% of voters that show up that day or that turn in their early ballots, 60% to pass a bond vote. And that takes a lot of people. So if you're just you're not getting very far unless you learn to work with others, right? And so thinking about this, how do you know how to work with others? So if you're the only person in your business and you have no roommate, no friends, no partner, and it's just solo you, hey, maybe you can change laws all by yourself for your own business. Possible. But most of us have people in our lives that even if we're working at work, there's going to be coworkers or business partners, or even talking about people you've contracted with. You have to have maybe a virtual assistant or a business manager or your CPA. All of these people are part of the team, right? And so sometimes we can't just change things on a whim. We have to actually work with other people. So when you're thinking about how to do this in the community, you got to think about what do we need and who cares about my topic? And so whatever the issue is that you want to care about. So let's talk about my bond vote this weekend in the community. We talk about the State House a lot, but this time let's talk about the community. There's a $43 million bond vote. The vote is next Tuesday on March the 7th. And there are some people are really against this idea. It raises your property taxes quite a bit. And so there are some people, especially with inflation and all the challenges going on, and lots of people on maybe a secured income level, that they have a certain amount of money in. And every time your taxes go up, that really impacts people, right? That's less money they can spend on food, less money they can spend on other things. And so there are people out there that are against this. At the same time, there's people that are really for this idea because it's a recreation center on the opposite side of town. There isn't one on this side of town. Lots of young families that could benefit from having a recreation center, right? So there's both sides of the issue. So if you're a person and you have an opinion, one or the other, you need to find other people like you, because again, to pass needs 60%, and to make it not pass, you just need a little over 41%, and you're going to not pass it, right? So you're either finding 40% or 60% in this particular case. So how do you find people that care about your topic? Where do you find people like that? And are there going to be people that can kind of spearhead this issue for you, right? Who wants to be the tip of the spear that's going to get the information, go out in public, go find these types of issues? Who's that going to be? That's what we're talking about today. So in the State House, same situation, but you're going to talk about all kinds of issues at the State House. So if you're a legislator at the State House and there's 100 of them in the House and there's 50 of them in the Senate and the governor's office, do you think 100 people care about your particular issue? Probably not. Are they going to have to vote on it? Yeah. But are they going to have time to become an expert on whatever the topic is? So say you're in the rural communities and you care about your bridges and your roads are deteriorating from heavy trucks. And this is actually a thing, especially in agriculture communities. And so there are limits to how heavy trucks can be because they actually can take out bridges. They can actually tear up roads. And so it matters, right? But for people like myself, I don't haul grain. I don't haul corn. I actually live in a rural community with those rural roads. Actually, not too far from my house. There's some that I don't choose to travel on very often, but they're not really my thing. So I'm not going to be well versed in heavy equipment and how much it tears up my bridges and stuff. That's just not me. I was the person that was the expert in mental health, right? And so when you're starting to think about people, if your topic is mental health, you would talk to me, not to the farmer bridge guy who cares about heavy equipment. He's who I talk to when they make me vote on things like farm implements and other things that I know nothing about. He'd be my friend and I'd be like, hey, is this good policy? Does this make sense? Is this going to make things better for what you do, right? And I learn from him. He learns from me, right? That is what we're talking about here. Who else cares about your issue? And so there's going to be issues that you don't care about, and that's okay. But you need to find the people that do. Here's where people go wrong. If you just go straight to your own personal legislator, your own representative, your own senator in this state, some places only have a senator, some people only have whatever they have, right? When you only go to one person, they may or may not care about your topic. And that's not because they're heartless. It's because maybe they have no experience. They don't know your story. They don't know the background. They don't have a solution. There could be a myriad of reasons why people don't care about the topic that you care about. So a couple different options. You can educate them. You can tell them your story. You can show them the data to help them understand, but you're going to need to find somebody if you're going to move forward that has some care and some knowledge about your issue. And if nobody has it, it's your job to have to educate them. So when you're thinking about who might help you, that's the first person you think of. Who has expertise on this issue? So if you're going to go talk about mental health, you need to find the people in the location that care about the issue. So if you're talking to your county board of supervisors, some of them may have family experience. Maybe they have loved ones with mental health issues, or they've dealt with challenges with dementia or autism or Alzheimer's disease or whatever in their family, right? They would have a different level of passion about the topic because maybe they have personal experience, right? That happens all the time. Or maybe you find somebody that is actually looking for the same, maybe they have the license or the credentials that you need, right? So you're looking for people that are social workers or people that are therapists or people that are PhDs that have a psychology degree or that are doctors or psychiatrists or you name it, right? So a lot of those people would have some experience in the field. So you need to think about, who do I know that is an expert on my topic? The second thing you need to think about is who is willing to help you. So who do you have in your life that cares about you and wants to help you, right? So my mom would probably do anything for me, but she's not going to be the person that I would go to for help for a mental health system change, because she would do everything to help me, yes, but does she have any influence, power, sway in the area of mental health systems? No. So you think about both of those, right? So who do you know that has some influence, some power, some sway? Who do you know that wants to help? That's number two, wants to help. I got ahead of myself there, but wants to help. Who is it that wants to help you? So just because you know somebody that is elected or you know somebody on the city council, that doesn't mean they want to help. But maybe they were a good friend of yours that went to school with you in high school. Maybe they went your college roommate. Maybe they'd be amazing to help you because they're people that care about what you care about and they'd be happy to help. Those are the types of people we're thinking about. And then the third group, I kind of mixed them together there for a second, but the third group is, who do you know of people of influence? So you might know somebody on city council or somebody that's been elected or somebody that's a CEO of a business or somebody who is a doctor that works in the private practice or has their own whatever. Think of that list of people. Who do you know, right? That are people that would have a voice in the system that you care about. And maybe they would be somebody that'd be willing to take on your cause. So you're thinking about, okay, who benefits from what you're trying to fix? So if you're a person trying to fix, say, trying to change the number of beds available for adults or for kids in a system somewhere, who benefits from that? Well, parents of other kids that are struggling might care about that, right? People that work in that field might care about that. People that want growing extra jobs in that community might care about that, right? There's a lot of people that could care about it for different reasons. So you got to think about, who do you know? And once you start thinking through these things, you start thinking through a short list of people. Like, who do you know that's an expert? Who do you know that might want to help? And who do you know that has influence? These are the three types of people you're going to kind of brainstorm through. So let's kind of dive into this again. I gave you a little bit of an example, but let's do it one more time. So if you're going to go through this and you say, who is it that you know that's an expert on this field? And maybe it's nobody, maybe it's yourself. Maybe, you have a good friend that is an expert in it. Maybe somebody that you know that they have the same story, but they'd be a great list. So think about, like, who is that? Then who also talks about what you care about? Maybe you could find groups like on Facebook or on LinkedIn or even in person. Are there groups out there that also talk about what you care about? So on that issue of the bond vote that I'm talking about related to the recreation center in my community, there's a group called Iowans for Tax Relief. They're pretty interested in the bond vote because it's $43 million of debt that's going to be put on property taxpayers. So they actually care about that. So if you're a member of that group, you can get their mailings, get their emails, be in their group on Facebook, and you too could be caring about property taxes, right? Or you could be somebody who really, really wants the vote, and you could be in the community center group, who are people who care and want to see a new rec center, who want to see this for their family and kids, and be in that group, that people that are supportive of this new rec center, right? And want to find other people who want to be voting for it, right? So you got to find your people. And so to do that, you're going to have to kind of tell people where you stand on an issue and pay attention to who's on your side and who's not. And that's going to be a way that you help figure out who else can help in that space. And then from that space of who has influence, right? If you're thinking about the board vote for Urbandale, that's going to be their city council people, their city planners, anybody to do with city. That's going to be who cares about a recreation center. It's going to be people in that space, maybe the people that help design it, that put the plan together, that, maybe the people that even support the bonds, that are going to be the municipal bond people, right? There's going to be a lot of people in that space that could give you information, could help you figure out your questions, could help you move the issue forward. That's what we're talking about here. To begin thinking about who could be a champion, you've got to brainstorm your list of who do you know that cares about what you care about, who wants to help you, and then who has influence. Once you get these three pieces together and start a brainstorming list, you can start working through that and figure out who would be the best champion to move your issue forward. If you're with us today and you're thinking, I have a lot of ideas, but I need some help on who would be the right person to help me, and you need some help with that champion, put champion in the chat. We'll reach out to you and set up a time that we can do a quick chat just to help you get pointed in the right direction, because your message matters and people want to hear it. I'm grateful to see you today. I look forward to seeing you again next week when we're talking about the last myth of the bunch. See you then. And if you haven't already, put on your calendar for that second week in March. We're doing a policy party. You're not going to want to miss it. See you then, everybody. Have a great day.